Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself, Sloth, and Mike today. Wilfried Zaha, a man that probably haunts you when you hear that name for the things he's done to West Ham over the years for Crystal Palace, but he actually could be joining West Ham, which would be nice. It's been rumoured recently now that he's been linked with a move to West Ham this summer from Galatasaray. It just hasn't really worked out for him there. He's still producing pretty good numbers, but it's just, yeah, I mean, if you get the opportunity to come back to the Premier League, I'm sure he would want to take it. And obviously with the new managerial switch that's likely to happen with Lopetegui, it looks like it's a position out wide that has been identified very quickly from the staff and all those involved with Steiden, etc. So I guess this one kind of makes sense given that Premier League experience. It's exactly what David Sullivan wants. Actual quality, which Tim Steiden's looking for, and then someone that fits the way Lopetegui wants to play. So, lads, when I say Wilfried Zaha, still only, 30, 31 years old, is it a name that excites you to bring in this transfer window? Because we're all about like bringing down the age gap of this squad. But this would kind of contradict what we're saying. But is there sometimes exceptions to that rule?
Yeah, this is the time when me and Sloth sound like the biggest hypocrites ever, because we've constantly said, don't get anyone over the age of 30, even questioning players at 28. But I think in light of certain things that we need, such as homegrown, which is a massive thing that we're going to need this year, because we have quite a few leaving, potentially in the likes of Cresswell. Possibly even Antonio might get sold, you don't know, and there will be others as well, Ben Johnson, etc. Leaving. Homegrown is something we need to get. So Wilfried Zaha gets that tick. He's 31, so it doesn't not really long term. However, his experience is one that is going to be vital for us if we're going to start looking at younger players, which we seem to be doing. So I'm kind of strangely on board with it because one, he still is quality. He's only been at Premier League one season.
Yeah.
He is he has proven to be a goal scorer. He's always been incredibly frightening to defenders, and he's
let's look at his stats as a kind of holistic overview. So obviously spent the majority of his career at Crystal Palace. I haven't included like the Cardiff and the Manchester United spells, but 90 goals, 62 appearances for 62 assists, in 458 appearances for Crystal Palace. That's pretty impressive. That's kind of a goal or assist every 3 games. And then Galatasaray, 15 goals or assists in 39. So kind of on trend with that. For I don't want to say an inverted winger, but he is kind of that type of player. You know, he's very much a goal scoring threat out wide, rather than necessarily the one who wants to create amazing assists or, you know, be the provider. He's the one that wants to score the goals. Is the type of player, Soft, that Zaha is going to fit the way that A, Lopetegui wants to play, and B, this new transition for West Ham where we're going to have to get the balance right in the transfer window with, you know, bringing and molding in younger European players that haven't necessarily been in the Premier League before and getting the experience and quality in numbers as well?
Yeah, I think this is exactly the kind of deal that normally, as Mike said, you know, we would both be going, that's not the sort of signing we should make. But as long as it's reasonable cost, I think this is genuinely the sort of player that will really help us progress, because let's face it, he's not going to be thinking, right, I'm going to go to West Ham, I'm going to start every single game. He might be trying to do that. He might well have it in his mind that he is going to become a starter or even challenge for a starting place. But he's going to know that, look, they're probably going to want to sign someone else. They're going to either want to sign a top striker, sign a top left winger, at least one nailed on starter in those positions. That's not going to be me, but I can do that. And if you're thinking about an attack with Kudus, Bowen, and say Antonio, Zaha, whoever's on that left wing spot, and another striker, then that is suddenly depth that we haven't had up top for years and years. Yeah. And it's a pacey player, it's a strong player, it's a player who doesn't mind doing a bit of the dark arts and rolling about a bit, buying a foul and, you know, cutting across a man to win a free kick. something we've lacked at West Ham for a long, long time. So I think this is the sort of player that would really help us.
As long as he wins one free kick, he's won more than Antonio does. And that's not because Antonio is a bad player; it's just because Antonio gets
Doesn't
enough.
get
So immediately make him more of a threat in some respects.
Yeah, exactly. Zaha is a player that we know his quality. We know exactly what we're going to get with a player like Zaha. It's just whether it fits the current setup of West Ham. You know, we're looking at his current wages. It's estimated that he's on around just over £100,000 a week right now. Would he want more than that if he comes to West Ham? I think that's my main reservation is injuries as he's getting older. And obviously he has had injuries to battle with in the past. And also the money he would be coming in on. Sloth, I don't know what your opinions on that would be. Would he fit the wage structure?
I think when you're moving from a club that is considered a lesser standard of like in terms of their league, I don't really think you could be demanding a higher wage. Now, the good thing about that level of wage is that, you know, we can afford that. We can pay 100 grand a week. And if you are putting him into the squad, you know, we've basically covered that by letting Phillips leave and go back to City. We can then free up more wages by potentially moving on Ings at a loss. So for me, that doesn't worry me at all. I think there's a lot of room to maneuver there. It would just be the cost of the deal initially. If there is,
how much do you expect it to cost? Because I think his contract's up in 2026, so still has a couple years left on his contract. How much realistically are they going to be asking for this deal?
I think in Turkey you tend to see him sell pretty quickly, and you don't necessarily always see for a high value. I'd be surprised if it was anything over 10 million.
Yeah,
I'd be probably surprised even if it's over 8. I think it will be fairly low. I even think his wages will probably be about 70 to 80, which I think is amenable. So I wouldn't necessarily have a problem. I think at that, you'd say it's a far better deal than what we got with Danny Ings.
Yeah.
And to Scott's point, if you get rid of Danny Ings, his wages is already covered. Even if he was on the same as Danny Ings, and all he would have to do is score 4 goals, and then he would have made it be worth more than what it was for Danny Ings anyway.
He was a free transfer as well from Crystal Palace, wasn't he? So it's not like Galatasaray are taking a loss on him.
No.
So anything that they do make would be seen as, you know, a decent move.
How high up would you guys go with this one? How much would you be willing to pay for Zaha this summer?
I'd be around Mike. I'd say about 10 million,
10.
maybe 12, 14.
Yeah. I think 10 is probably where I would stop, because I think that's probably, if we look at players that we may sell, I think Danny Ings will probably look to sell for maybe about 5. We'll probably even try and sell Antonio for about 8 to 10 million because it's Saudi. So I think maybe if you sold those 2, you would then put that 2 together and say that is the maximum amount you'd be willing to put on Zaha. But I personally don't think it would go that high. I would probably look to stick to 10 and then kind of ride it out, because he wants out ultimately. So I think I'd kind of try and ride it out and be a bit kind of.
I don't think we'll be selling Antonio this window. I think we know that Lopetegui likes him. You know, he was quite interested in bringing him to Wolves. And
the question is contract though, Sloth, isn't it? Because his contract ends this year, so it may be that we might think.
Thought there's a year's.
There is the year extension for Antonio. Yeah.
I think that's what we've triggered. I think his contract ended this year, and we've triggered the 1 year, so he's only got 1 year left.
Yeah, he's still got a year left. Yeah.
So I don't think we'd be selling him. Like, I think if we did, it would be very much a case of he's going to want the best offer for him, unless he is offered a ridiculous amount on the contract. Why would we sell? Because he could get more money essentially if he just lets it run down and goes next year.
Do you think if Lopetegui was to come in the summer and make Zaha one of his first transfers, do you think it would be for that kind of inside left forward role, or do you think maybe he'd deploy him as a striker? Because again, like bringing these stats back up, his time at Palace versus just before he left, and then obviously Kudus this season, they're very similar in terms of contributions. It's just the creation from Kudus is higher, and Zaha's goal output is higher. So there's definitely a focus for Zaha to score goals. Is that what we need as is that what we're going to look for in a striker to score goals, or do we actually need that from our inside left forward as well?
I think, interestingly, he will use them as both. If you look at Yusuf En-Nesyri, if you look at him in his time at Sevilla, particularly under Lopetegui used to play him as a left winger and then would bring him in and then put him as a centre forward. I think someone like Zaha will be treated the same. The expectation will be sometimes you'll play out wide, sometimes you'll play maybe through the middle. It'll be, I think, game to game specific as to how and when he uses him. I don't think he's going to be a regular starter. I think he will start games, obviously, but I do think he'll probably be predominantly from the bench. And having a player like that, as well, we have Bowen, means that if you have a front three of Kudus, Bowen, and Zaha, you essentially can say to those players, you have complete freedom to roam. All I ask you to do is if one of you goes into this space, or vacates that spot, you go into that. Kind of, if you remember, obviously the Man United when they had Rooney, Tevez, and Ronaldo, how that three works. That when one vacated the space on the left, the other one went there. So at times you'd have Rooney playing left wing for massive swathes of the season, parts of the season, and then other times playing right wing because of the way the front three works. And I think that will be the same kind of license you would get, in that it would be, you essentially go where you need to go to which to cause
exactly.
the most damage, and then you then fit in within that. And I think we'll have a formation, but I don't think the positions will be fixed. I think it'll be really flexible, especially if you have those three. And of course, because of the pace that you get from two of them, Bowen has obviously got good pace, but the pace from two, it is. Could you imagine being a defender and then you got Will Zaha bursting at you, and then you're looking over your shoulder and there's Mo Kudus coming, and then your mate next to you is looking over his shoulder and you've got Jared Bowen coming in. And Antonio
on the bench as well.
Yeah, you can stop Antonio, and we don't. And we even talk about potentially Jota Silva, who could be coming in, who is also amazing. All of a sudden, you're starting to look and go, I am not looking forward to this team either when they've got the ball and attacking normally in like normal possession, and I'm certainly not looking forward to it in transition when I'm in a kind of a 2-1 situation.
What would you rate this if this was to happen? What would you rate this transfer out of 10? If it gets done, it's less than 10 million. Wages are around 70 to 80,000. What is that out of 10 for you guys?
If we're getting the Palace version, I'd say a strong 8.5. If you get the Palace one, we're getting a player who's going to score us goals, and goals are like gold dust. And if it costs you less than 10 million, Jesus Christ, then you are laughing.
Yeah. Slough, what about you?
Yeah, well, I agree. I think if we get the Palace Zaha in the sort of side that we are counter-attacking and looking to hit sides on the break, will be a massive threat. I think it's also adding to the homegrown numbers. It's someone who has got that experience as well. So I think a solid 8.5, if it's under 10 million pounds, maybe even more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it'd be a good signing. Interesting to see how this one develops. It goes against the norm of what we say on this channel about the types of signings, but there are exceptions out there if you can find the right gems. So yeah, we're going to leave it there. Make sure to leave a like on the video and comment down below. Would you like to see Wilfried Zaha in a West Ham shirt under potentially Lopetegui next transfer window? Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and lads, until next time.
Come on, you irons.